Hey there everyone, Skew here. Today we're going to be talking about something that I think is very important for Ram this patch, and that is going to be her Rekka series. This move previously was okay, but I wouldn't say it was that important to her kit overall. Now, however, with all the buffs that it got in the most recent patch, I think it is one of the most important moves in her kit. And I kind of just want to talk about what they changed about it and why it's so good now, and give you guys some ideas of what you can be doing with it. Previously, Ram had an issue as a character where she kind of struggled to get knockdowns and start pressure from a lot of situations mid-screen. She always had to rely on something like Darrow for most of her conversions mid-screen, which didn't even give a knockdown, right? It was just like a decent restand, and that was about it. Of course, if you were in the corner, her ability to convert and create pressure was amazing, but if you weren't near the corner or if you didn't have a sword available, her ability to create situations was kind of lacking. The changes they made to her Rekka pretty much entirely fixed that and make it to where she has so many more ways to get meaningful conversions mid-screen. So today we're going to talk about everything you need to know about her Rekka. Real quick, if you do enjoy the video, drop a sub, drop a like, it really helps me out and lets me know that you guys are enjoying the videos. And if there's any videos you would like to see me do in the future, let me know down in the comments below. Alright, the first thing we're going to talk about is the fact that Rekka 1 is now considerably faster than it used to be. And what this pretty much means is it makes it to where Rekka will combo from most of her pokes now. So Far Slash into Rekka is a combo, 2S Rekka, 6B Rekka, 2D Rekka, those are all true combos now. Previously, you needed a counter hit for any of those to work. Now they just work all the time. And this is great because it makes, her pokes like Far Slash and 2S, they'll actually go into a full conversion into a knockdown where you can run up and apply pressure. They don't work all the time. If you're not in range for Rekka to work, it won't convert. You'll still have to use Darrow for those situations. But more often than not, you're going to have situations where you can combo into Rekka instead, which is much better. The most important one to me personally is the fact that 6P combos into Rekka. Her 6P has always been a pretty decent counter poke in neutral. It's pretty active, it's pretty fast. The issue with it before, however, was that you didn't have a great special cancel option, and it wasn't very rewarding because of that. Now that you just have 6P into Rekka, this gives her a much better counter poke in like the close to mid range. Versus a poke like, say, Soul's Far Slash, for example, at around this range, you now have like a meaningful way to just kind of counter poke it and get a knockdown from it. She didn't really have that before, so I think that is a massive improvement to her neutral. And it improves a range where she kind of struggles, where she has an issue at a kind of about this range, I would say. Her 6P really helps her out with that now. It also, by extension, makes stuff like her 5P better because it combos into 6P, which combos into Rekka. So now defensively, if you're blocking it out against your opponent, you can properly mash out of your opponent's offense and be rewarded for it. Whereas before, she kind of had this issue where sometimes you would mash out of pressure, but you didn't have like a great way to convert off of it. Now, it doesn't work all the time. There's still going to be some ranges where, you might not get a great conversion. But more often than not, her defense is a lot better than it was previously. And it also makes 5P better in pressure as well. If you watch me play now, as of this patch, I use a lot of 5P in my pressure because you can actually just get a hard knockdown off of it. They also made it to where 6P anti-air combos very consistently from Rekka. Before, you needed a counter hit and they needed to be kind of high up whenever you 6P them. Now it pretty much just always works for the most part. Her 6P was always a really good anti-air. Now it's just even better and more consistent and you get better reward from it, which is great to have. Even just something like 2K 2D comboing into Rekka now is very nice to have. It makes her 2K a more rewarding button and her 2K was already pretty good. So overall, it just makes all of her buttons by extension way better because they're more rewarding and you can create pressure off of them more often. Which, speaking of pressure, they're also way better on block now. Now, most of Ram's pokes into Rekka are actually a true block string. If I set this Ram to press a button after Far Slash, you'll see that her button doesn't even come out because it's a true block string, right? If you want to actually frame trap people, you're going to have to manually delay your Rekka. So you still have the option to frame trap with Rekka, but you also now have the option of having a true block string. Something that was kind of annoying about Ram previously is that if a character had a reversal, you kind of struggle to create safe offense against them because, something like Ram's Far Slash, I believe, is like -10 or so. If the opponent had a good reversal on deck, you didn't really have like a great way to deal with reversals like that because Rekka used to also be punishable on block. But Rekka is no longer punishable on block. It's only -5. Well, it's still technically punishable, but it's only punishable by quick moves, such as like 5Ps or 5Ks, for example. So reversals can't punish this block string anymore because there's not a gap, and the Rekka itself is also much safer on block, making it to where her pressure mid-screen is so much better than it used to be, and she has less difficulty dealing with characters with reversals. Now, Rekka is -5, so it can technically be punished by characters' fastest normals, usually they're 5Ps. For most characters, though, this is not very rewarding. It kind of depends on the matchup, how punishable this actually is, and also depends on how close you are. If you're doing it like point blank, it'll be a little bit more punishable than if you're doing it far away, for example. But just the fact that the reward for mashing like a 5P against the Rekka is not terribly rewarding for most characters means that it's relatively pretty safe. And a little bit later in the video, we're going to talk about how much reward you can get for frame trapping somebody trying to mash here, because you can just cancel into Rekka too. Overall, just Rekka being able to combo from more things, being able to create pressure with it and more block strings, it being safer, so it's easier to deal with reversals. It just massively improves her ability to convert and actually have mid-screen pressure that she didn't have before. So very, very big buff and helps out one of her biggest issues as a character overall. The next thing we're going to talk about is probably the craziest change they made to her Rekka, which is the fact that her Rekka is now special cancelable, essentially. The way they did this is they made the dash cancel that she has on her Rekka, they made the dash cancel special cancelable. Which I know sounds weird, it is weird, very strange to get used to, and this is definitely not easy. I have seen a lot of Ram players struggling with this, so I'm going to give you guys a couple of tips that I can suggest if you're trying to get good at Rekka special cancels. My first tip is going to be go into your button settings and make sure that you have a dash macro set up. The dash button is very useful. I suggest just having it in general, not just for Rekka cancels. But for Rekka cancels, I find it almost essential. I think if you were trying to do this by tapping forward every time, it would be way too hard and not consistent. So I highly suggest making sure you have a dash button. I use a dash button for a lot of things in this game. It's very handy. My next suggestion is that I find that a lot of Ram players, if they're struggling with doing this Rekka cancel, it's often because they are doing their inputs sooner than they think they have to. The dash cancel that comes from the Rekka happens a lot later than you might think it does. If you check my inputs over on the left, you'll notice that I can press the button long before the dash cancel will actually come out. The buffer window on it is massive, and this can give you an idea of how much later the dash cancel happens than you might expect it does. So that's my first tip, is just make sure you're starting your inputs a little bit later than you think you do. If you're having a lot of issues where you're just getting an empty dash, or you're getting something like Rekka 2 instead of Rekka into Rekka 1, it's very often because you are doing your inputs too early. My next tip is actually in regards to how you input the Rekka cancel in the first place. So I'm talking about Rekka 1 into Rekka 1 because this is probably the hardest thing to learn. Doing stuff like Rekka into Sword Toss, for example, I find to be easier. I think the input leniency on other specials is just better than Rekka into Rekka. When it comes to inputting Rekka into Rekka, however, there is a little bit of a technique that I've been using that I feel like makes it pretty consistent. What you're going to do is you're going to do the first Rekka, and then after the first Rekka, you're going to input the motion for the next Rekka, so it's going to be 214, and then we're going to essentially press the dash button, and then immediately after we're going to press the P button. This is essentially a plink, if anyone knows what that is. If you look at my inputs over on the left, you'll notice that I do the 214 motion, and then I press the dash button, and then right after the dash button, you see the dash button being held down, and me pressing the P button. Whenever you see the dash button being pressed, and then the next input is dash button being held down and the P button being pressed, that's how you know that you have the timing with the dash button and the P button down correctly. So if you just look at my inputs, it'll look like this every time I do it. This is definitely not easy. Do not feel bad if it's taking you a while to get this down or if you're still dropping it. I still drop it in matches. It is definitely not easy. I would suggest learning to do sword toss first. I find this one to be way easier than doing Rekka into Rekka, for example. And there's probably more situations where you're going to be using Rekka into sword toss anyways, so it's probably better to learn that first. Now, in regards to, is this actually good? What do you actually use this for? The answer is there's a lot of different things you can use this for, and you can get pretty creative with it if you want to. You know, on pressure, you can just do stuff like Rekka 1 into Rekka 1 a bunch if you want to. This is mashable, however. A lot of people think that it's just like a block string infinite or whatever. It's crazy. That's not true if you actually just set the dummy to mash something like 5p, for example. You can actually mash out of this, just like that. This is actually pretty hard to mash out of, though, because you have to mash pretty much immediately. And this happens so fast that if you're not really looking for it, like, Ram players can just get away with this a lot. And, of course, she can just cancel into Rekka 2 to frame trap you. So it's not a free mash, but you can mash if a Ram player is just doing Rekka 1 into Rekka 1 over and over. You can mash out of that. If you're in the corner or something, you can also just do Rekka 1 into sword toss if you think people are being too respectful of your Rekka, and that'll let you, you know, get away with sword toss and now you're plus on block instead. It can also be good for calling out something like a backdash. Backdashing Rekka 1 is a pretty common option because it will make a Rekka 2 whiff. Something you can do, however, is just cancel into sword toss, and it will actually punish the backdash, and if you're near the corner, you get a full conversion from it. In terms of combos, there's tons of different things you can do. One that I think is really good that you're going to want to learn is doing this combo off of 2k. This combo basically lets you turn a mid-screen 2k conversion into a full wall break combo. The way this combo works is that you're going to do 2k 2d into Rekka 1, and then you're going to do delayed Rekka 2, so you get the enhanced Rekka, just like that, and then you're going to dash cancel into Rekka, or you're going to dash cancel the Rekka into sword toss, and then you get a full combo from that. This can even work off of anti-airs, for example. So we set the Ram to jump, and then just have her get counter hit. This works more consistently on counter hit. If you hit them like kind of high up, you can do stuff like this, which lets you get, again, a full conversion off of an anti-air 6p. Like we just did over 200 damage from an anti-air 6p. So this change can be used in so many different ways. I think we're still finding all the ways that you can use it. Something that I found that I haven't really implemented yet is that you can even do something like this. A little bit hard to do, so forgive me for messing it up. But you can do that conversion on a counter hit far slash. And basically the way this works is just counter hit far slash, Rekka 1, enhanced Rekka 2, so you're going to have to delay the Rekka 2, and then you're going to cancel that into Daro. This only works off counter hit far slash as far as I know, but the conversion is crazy and the reward is very high. Yeah, there's any number of ways that you can use this for combos. You know, you can even, if you're good at Rekka cancels, you can also just kind of loop Rekka a bunch. So if you do something like this, you can even loop Rekka 2 or 3 times off of some launchers, which gives you a crazy amount of meter gain, by the way, if you didn't look at that. So there's just a crazy amount of ways that you can use this, and you get very creative with it. This is just to give you some ideas of what you can be doing. I didn't mention it, but they did add a dash cancel to Rekka 2 as well. So if you do something like this, you can special cancel that one as well. Yeah, this is just a really fun change. It adds some execution to RAM. Like I said, don't feel bad if you're still messing it up. I messed it up a couple times in this video even, right? So it's not easy, but the potential with this is just actually insane what it lets her do. And as a smaller note, they also made it to where her Rekkas charge up faster. And this makes it to where you frame trapping somebody with Rekka is way more rewarding than it used to be. And very consistently, I might add. So now if you frame trap somebody with Rekka 2, for example, you can always charge up Rekka 3 and just get an actually insane amount of damage from it. The same thing applies to, like, if someone got frame trapped by charge Rekka 3 or whatever, you can very consistently combo off of that. If they get frame trapped by Rekka 1, you can combo into charge Rekka 2, into charge Rekka 3, and get a full conversion from that. The reward from Rekka, because of all of the changes they've made to it, from whether it just being, you know, frame trapping somebody with Rekka or getting like a frame trap with a 2S into Rekka, it's just so much better for converting so many situations and makes her pressure so much more threatening mid-screen than it used to be. So in summary, it just kind of really changes how you can look at the character, because now she isn't so focused on needing the corner. They didn't change anything about her corner pressure. You can still run all of the same corner pressure, it's just as good as it used to be. But now you have this whole extra dynamic to the character because of all the buffs they made to her Rekka. And I think this made her a lot more fun to play, and it added a little bit of an execution element to her, which I like. Anyways, that's gonna do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions, you can ask down in the comments below. I do also stream over on Twitch consistently throughout the week, so if you want to come out and hang out with me there and hang out with the squad and ask questions, I always appreciate people asking questions. That's gonna do it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.